Today we're going to be doing the presentation, Why Most AI Projects Fail. This presentation was recently given at NEDME conference in Hillsboro, Oregon, 2025. Unfortunately, we didn't have a way to record the session in person there live, so I'm recording this now after the fact so that it can be distributed to people who attended and beyond. So without further ado, I shall commence. All right, so my background at a glance, I'm half French, born in Boston, trilingual. I'm one of those, self-made stories, American classic, I suppose, where like I came from a low-income life, but I was very ambitious at a young age and like self-taught myself coding and did all kinds of other kind of creative technical things. I kind of love being between those two spaces. I've done some invention of some hardware devices. I've toured. I've also been an entrepreneur. I've had 5 companies altogether. And, on the side, I like to make board games, card games. And I've always been super passionate in AI and astrophysics. Back in 1995, 98, I was already interested in like AI, consciousness, self-awareness, and, studying things at college related to that and stuff like that. So it's my background. All right, in terms of the business background, just very briefly, so I started off doing a lot with bigger brands, a lot more technical work, and then eventually things got a little bit bigger. Fountain City's been around since 98, and then in 2016 is when we really became a larger company. We peaked in 2025 at about 22 people, and since then we've been refactoring ourselves, rebranding to really just focus on AI digital transformation. Before this, the most recent evolution, we were doing a lot of digital transformation without the AI. And so this is kind of the latest evolution of our services. It's been a natural kind of progression of what we're doing. And we've been doing AI related work with like language interpretation all the way back. I think our first big one was with Heineken. Already at that point. So, not totally new. And then this year is also the year that I launched my other business with 2 co-founders called TestFox, which does AI testing. You can see here at the bottom right. Our team, so there's broad kind of capabilities. I'm here as the owner. I'm definitely well versed in AI solutions, implementation, best practices, what's successful is kind of my expertise of how to make sure your AI project is implemented well, that you're successful. We have in our roster at Fountain City also, AI engineers, data scientists, and so forth. So also the capability of implementation. These are our core capabilities. So a lot, like I've already said, around AI implementation and services, and then also infrastructure and SysOps to kind of secure the infrastructure around an AI implementation. We also do a lot of that work as well. Our focus is, if we look historically, about 60% of our clients are in manufacturing of some kind. I put a few logos here on the left. Our other 40% is pretty broad, everything from healthcare, wellness, professional services, finance. I don't know. There's just like a whole slew of other services in the other category. But about 60% of our clients have been in manufacturing to date. So definitely a focus of ours. Okay, in terms of where we focus in relation to industry and manufacturing, we specialize really in the AI that goes around the manufacturing operations themselves. We have done projects connecting to ERP, APIs. We've done digital transformation of like inventory order management systems. We've done observability. Our team has experience on big IoT projects. So we definitely have experience as connecting very close to the manufacturing process because of the observability and the inventory and all that kind of stuff. But we're not specializing in the actual manufacturing process. So things like robotic vision or other things like that, they're also really cool with AI. That's just not where we focus. That's not where experience is. All right, so in terms of why you might focus on AI, I've really broken it down into like 4 key benefits that you'll get from AI when you really think it down and boil it down. There's the qualitative automation. So what I mean by that is up until now, you've been able to do deterministic automation. Is it true or false? Is it 1 or 2, right? Or what is the value of 1 plus 1? It's 2. It's deterministic. There's really no arguing on the outcome. It's a logical kind of outcome, right? And that's what computers have been really good at for the last couple decades or more. Qualitative automation is this new layer that generative AI systems are bringing to the equation of automation, which is being able to do qualitative decisions. Is a customer upset, right? that's not a binary yes or no. You might end up saying yes or no, but to make that decision is very qualitative. It's subjective. So AI is giving us the ability to now create automations and processes that used to be have to be 100% human to be also supported by qualitative computer decisions that are qualitative, essentially. Compression of time, right? When you use AI to do a search for, like, if you want to, I don't know, make your proposal better, before maybe you'd have to go off and do some Google research, which is already a compression of time because you don't have to go to the library. But anyway, so you go off, you do Google, you read some articles, you get through the ads, you read them all, you make some notes, and you do that over and over, and then you cross-reference the sources and all that kind of stuff. Now with AI, you could do the same thing, and you could say, I want, here's my proposal, here's my theories, here's the authors I like the most. Find me, review my proposal in relation to this author's theory on how proposals should be written and give me feedback, give me criticism, give me ideas on how to make it better. And it'll just do that. And it'll reference sources. You have to absolutely check the quality of those references. That's a whole other topic of like the problems with AI and sourcing. But, if you, it is still a compression of time. And that's a lot of the thing that really wows us with AI is that compression. The other is pattern recognition, which is, basically intelligence, but because you can argue that pattern recognition is a form of IQ, as what IQ is. But with relation to the AI, so you could give a bunch of different variables or permutations or machine learning, the whole way that the Gen AI does the predictive text, where it knows what to output next, it's all about pattern recognition. That's all it really is patterns. So pattern recognition is very powerful. When you can recognize a pattern someone else hasn't, that is an absolute advantage, right? So big advantages there. And then the last is knowledge democratization. What I mean by this, an example of it is before, if you want to know what's in someone's head, in Bob's head, Bob is really busy, you're going to have to find a way to have a meeting or talk with Bob to get their ideas or write them an email or whatever. But if you're able to take data and knowledge and put that into a system now, you can have AI access that knowledge of system and then provide the information to other people on demand. So if Bob has a bunch of information that he's been able to put down on paper somewhere, digital paper is what I'm talking about, and then the other people on their team can just ask information from Bob's knowledge. And that knowledge could also be, what meetings is he in this week, or what were the notes from his meetings from last week, whatever knowledge it is. And there's going to be examples in this presentation that go much deeper into that. But those are kind of like the four categories. If you can think of another one that I haven't, let me know. But I really racked my brain and I have not been able to find another benefit that really doesn't fit in these four categories. Okay, so in terms of the promise, so we've been, why are people excited about AI? We hear about stories of like saving 20 hours a week, reducing operational costs. These numbers are even sometimes modest. I've seen like much bigger claims. So, AI has all this promise, but, the reality is we're seeing a lot of problems with it. There's tons. If you just do even a little bit of search on the internet, you will find a lot of examples of failure, and it's all over the place. So that's really kind of the focus of what I'm going to be talking about a lot today is what are the things that make your project fail and what can you be doing about it to improve your success rate? How can you be that 20% or 30% or 15, however you want to look at the percentages, but how can you be that successful cream of the crop that doesn't have to go through these problems? Another thing that's going on right now is that we're all kind of like, at the time of this recording, I would say we're somewhere in that trough of disillusionment, right? This is kind of the hype cycle. I think last year we were in like the inflated expectations, and we've been just kind of 2025 has been a lot of that kind of crash where people are realizing like, okay, there's a lot of potential here, but the promise that I can just throw in a prompt into this slideshow generator and it's going to come up with slides that are so good I never even have to do any design work anymore or layout or thinking about my slides is like, well, it's not quite there yet, right? And that seems to be the story overall. And but all these kind of hype cycles go through the same phase, which is once people really understand how things are useful and beneficial and how they can be used, we start going back up into this like productivity slope, right? Where like things actually move and progress forward. This slide is just showing, we're still very early in the AI adoption. I really feel like this life that we're living right now is very similar to the beginning of the web with If back in the mid 90s, it would be like, website, what's a website? I don't need a website. Why does my business need a website? And like a lot of businesses didn't have that. Nowadays, it's like, you don't have a website? Why don't you have a website? Of course you have a website. So we're in that same kind of phase right now where AI systems integration still feels very novel, very new, very difficult, and also obscure and not really clear. And, some of it sounds like daunting and confusing. And that's what we're talking through, and that's kind of where we're at. So it's okay if you're in that phase right now. A lot of people are. I would say the vast majority of people are in that position. Another thing I want to reinforce here, I saw this sketch in someone else's presentation. I thought it was an awesome reflection. So credit due to Brent. I'll put his credits in the video comments, but he talks about the asymmetrical upside of AI. So, and I did draw this myself, so pardon the inking. But right now, another reason why people are willing to put in so much effort and bear through the downsides of these failures is because when you get it right, the upside is asymmetrical, meaning you're getting a much higher upside than the downside. If you can find a way to automate your life away so that you spend 10, 20 hours a week less on something that you didn't want to be doing anyway, and you do it once and it's just done, and then you don't have to work on it anymore, that's paying you out dividends for years, decades to come, right? That is a huge upside. And if you get it wrong the first month and then you get it right the second, you're still printing out free extra time to do the things you love for years to come, right? So there's a lot. That's the reason people are pushing a lot. All these projects is because the upside is real. All right, so why do projects fail? Here's kind of an overview of all the main reasons for failure. So I am going to go through these a little bit. There's going to be slides on going into deeper of these aspects, but lack of expertise is kind of a big one. So not understanding what AI can and cannot do, what it's good for, what it's not. I had a slide earlier on talking about AI being really good for subjective, qualitative decisions. Sometimes people are using AI for deterministic decisions. Not a good idea, right? If you have it doing a bunch of math, why are you doing that? Don't use AI for math problems, right? Yes, you can use it for math reasoning through like these college papers that show the whole process, but it's kind of different because it's like a logical problem. But the actual math itself, if you're building an automation into AI, you're going to want to segregate that out and have something else doing it. Just an example, right? AI limitations, capabilities. Okay. The next is if you don't have good process, which is both process, which might be a workflow, right? Do A, then B. And if B is greater than this, do C, that's kind of like a workflow. But another kind of process could be a logical framework. Under these conditions, mark this product as a sale, and how much is based on these other factors, right? So you have rules essentially that are driving decisions. If you have solid processes and solid frameworks for your logic, depending on what kind of AI it is, you're going to be a lot more successful. But if you don't have these things, if you don't have good process, and then you put an AI to automate a non-existent bad process, you're just not going to get anything great out of that, So you're kind of like dooming yourself there. Agency, too much agency. So this would be an AI that you give a lot of control to do a lot of things on its own without a lot of guardrails. So it's kind of like power without process or power without structure. Also not a good idea. Data quality, what I mean by that is if you don't have good data, maybe you don't even have data, maybe you're just relying on the AI's inherent knowledge of a subject, and you say to you put an AI into content production, and you just say, write me an excellent blog that a skilled marketing representative would write about blah, 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 insert the blank. And that's like the only instruction you give. And then you get an output and you read it and you're like, wow, this is like slop. This is really low quality output. It's like, well, you didn't give it any good data. You didn't give it all your years of writing. Your tone of voice hasn't been defined. Like I can just keep going on and on about all the information you need to include in the training set of the AI before you start having it generate information. Otherwise, you're just going to get the most generic stuff that comes out of it. And that's just an example of quality issue there. Quality in general for data. No good data, probably a failed project, right? Or maybe you have data, but it's not been organized. Data engineering hasn't happened on it yet to figure out how it needs to be categorized and organized. And also the combination of AI databases, which are vector databases, sometimes people call them RAG systems, but it doesn't have to be RAG, but vector databases and traditional conventional databases. Sometimes you need both, and people are sometimes just doing only AI databases, right? Lack of testing. Oh my God, I've seen so many systems. It is kind of crazy. that are launched, whether it's an AI chatbot going to customers or an internal AI system, and there is just no or very minimal AI testing, or it's like ad hoc testing. It blows my mind still because really, like, people don't release software without testing it, and yet we're releasing these AI systems without testing. And then a month later, a customer has a bad experience with their chatbot, and they think, "Oh my God, AI is not ready," and they take it down, and then they're like, "Okay, AI was just a bunch of bad promises. I'll look at it again in 1 or 2 years." But the reality is, no testing was done, and that was the failure. Lack of strategy. So what I mean by this is, if you're doing an AI project, do you have an outcome that you've been thinking about, that you're planning for? Is there an ROI attached with it? ROI could be time or money, and money could be bottom or top of the line, right? More revenue or lower expenses. And time could be less time spent on the things you don't want to be doing, or more time spent doing the things you want to be doing, right? So there's also qualification within top and bottom line of time, you could say. If there's a focus on the ROI, you're going to be a lot more successful because you have something quantifiable that you're working towards. And it's like building a house. You have a vision of the end goal, and then you can work backwards. All right, next, experiment driven. So experimentation, you'll see later, I do recommend experimentation. I think it's really important for adoption, familiarity, and so forth. But you don't want your actual initiatives to be just experimentally driven. Like, let's try out 5 tools, and let's try this one tool for this note taking. And then like 2 months later, you're like, well, it's not integrating with our sales systems or our marketing systems because we should have used a different one. And you're like, now everyone's been using it. We have to like abandon the whole thing and then start over, right? Like, if you didn't have the strategy in place before you did it and it was only experimentation driven. So that's another reason. And then the last is too big. So absolutely, you'll see in a later slide, have a big dreamy goal. You want that, but you need to break that big goal down into incremental steps with those ROIs. And ideally, each one of the projects has an ROI so that you are making incremental progress towards that objective. All right, we spent a long time in this slide, so let's keep going. The reality of AI is, there's this adage, I forget where I heard it first, but, new technology, like when blogging came out, people who were in the know watching the technology were like, blogging is going to take over news, meaning like, traditional print newspapers, because blogging was better, cheaper, faster. So if ever anything that comes out is all three, it kind of sweeps the planet and really turns things upside down. It becomes a displacer. With AI, we get cheaper and faster easy. I would say those parts are not hard to maximize. The better part, though, is hard. And what I mean by that is, it's everything that was on that previous slide. If you don't have the good data, you don't have the good process, you're not doing testing, you're just going to get bad quality, right? And then you're going to think that the AI system is not up to scratch. So you need formalized process and approach in order to get the better part that is hard to be working for you. So the projects that are successful, this is going to be a lot of the inverse. They have a vision of where they're going, a roadmap, and it's broken down. They're focused on a narrow slice of the business operation that has a clear ROI, good data, good process, good testing. And then finally, I'll also be going a little bit in this presentation into the people, leadership, and training, but these things are also really important and they kind of tie into the whole thing. So let's go on to that vision part. So it's good to think big. You definitely want to start here. And, if you're having trouble thinking big with AI, people like me or others out there who are kind of in this soup all the time can definitely help you to collaboratively think about these things. It's great to do brainstorming or whiteboarding sessions like this to kind of go over this. But I would say you do want to think big. You want to have a vision. And from here, we're going to be able to break it down into steps, And so here on this page, on this slide, you can pause it. There's a bunch of different ideas that, clients of ours have had or that we've seen. And then when you're breaking it down into smaller steps, so you want each of these projects, each of these sub-projects to have a measurable outcome to already provide value while they're also bringing you towards that ultimate end goal. So here the adage, of like slow and steady wins the race, like the tortoise and the hare. You want to be the tortoise as much as you can. But within each little turtle step, of course, you can move fast, right? There's no problem moving fast within that. It's just the overall approach should be strategic. It should be structured into these wins that you can progress from one to the other. Right. Now let's go into the planning phase. So you've got that big vision, you want to break it down, and you're going to come up with a whole bunch of ideas. And so a really good technique is to map it out between impact and effort. And you can map it out what, the things that are major effort and major impact, those would be your biggest projects. But if you can find quick wins, those would be high impact, right? So it's going to really improve your time or money equation. And low effort, these are the things you want to focus on. So if you end up with a lot of stuff that's stuck here in the high effort, either major project or rethink, I would suggest to you to take those ideas, break them down into smaller pieces, and then those can become quick wins. So it becomes more of a goal, and then you're having quicker wins to get to that. So for example, if you want to do, let's say your end vision is an AI system that will automatically create blog posts from scratch, doing research on 20 newsletters you subscribe to. It's going to pull from all of them. It's going to write in your tone of voice. It's going to be high quality work with sources, cross-checking of sources, also using AI to validate sources. Like this is like a complete chain, end-to-end, human supervised, but it's otherwise autonomous. That's a major project, potentially with a major impact, because if you have that whole chain set up, maybe you're posting like 5 blog posts a day. And I'm talking about high quality posts, right? We're going back to that quality, right? We're assuming the quality is there. That's probably too big as your first goal. So how do we break that down? Oh, maybe if we first defined our tone of voice really solid and the AI really understood how to write with let's say it's one person's tone of voice. Maybe it's the leader of the organization or the main blogger right now, or the person who does your speaking events, whoever it might be, they have a tone of voice. If you could just nail that one part, all of a sudden anyone else in the company, including that person, can just take raw thoughts, put them into a system, and you get text that comes out of it that is, let's say, 80, 90, 99% close to their authentic tone of voice. That's already a win, and that might already give you a measurable ROI. That can be your quick win, right? And so that's like one little brick towards the larger building, towards that bigger vision. In terms of narrow focus, so I would think of your AI project should be, one pain point, one job, domain-specific knowledge. What you don't want is an AI that has to do, you're going to implement this AI thing, and it's going to do jobs horizontally across different departments or different types of functions. It's just too loose, right? You're just not going to be able to tie it down tightly enough in order to get controlled output and controlled results. The other thing, I've already talked about this, is making sure you're using it for deterministic and not deterministic and for qualitative decisions, right? So the customer seems to have an urgent issue we need to address. Perfect for AI. Don't make it do math, right? I'll keep going because I already talked about that. Human in the loop. All right, so another thing that's important for the validity of your systems and for trust, right? Because you need to build trust with AI systems for 2 reasons. First, why wouldn't you want to test and validate the system? And second, it also removes a lot of the stress of putting these systems into place. Don't throw the system out there into the wild until you validate it. And the best way to validate it is to start with human in the loop. So you have your AI, it generates, we'll keep going with that blog idea. So it generates a blog post, it's in draft, human reviews it, approves it, maybe does some fixes, records the areas where the AI made mistakes for the AI system to get better. That's really important. It's the feedback loop, right? We want to teach the AI how to be better. So we record, the AI did these problems with the writing style. Let me write it down. And then I fixed it and published, right? So human in the loop. Human on the loop is you have the trust, and it's been validated, and it's doing it fine like 99.99% of the time. And it's like, it's so good now. You just monitor it, right? The AI just does its thing, and you don't need to be in there pushing the button each time to check it. So make sure you follow that approach too. Clear ROI. I don't think I need to go too deep into this, but I do want to point out here that sometimes we only think about the top-down aspect of it, which is that we want to have more profits and less expenditures. But I think it's also important, especially for adoption, to think about AI supporting everyone in your organization. So for people in your teams, it's more of a bottom-up approach. And for someone in your company, for them, their motivation might be, I want to spend less time doing the things that are boring, repetitive, mundane. I want to spend more time doing the things that are challenging and interesting and feel enriching to me. So that's, do less of what you don't want to be doing and more of what you love. So that's kind of like a big win if you can make that alignment happen. In terms of the ROI timeframe, for most projects that you might be doing that are like 4, 5, 6 figures, low 6 figures, probably don't want to go over the 6 to 12 month ROA time frame, I would say is my recommendation. If you're at that point and you have that motivation and you decide like, we're going to go big in this one big project and you're approaching like upper 6, 7 figures, sure, you could have a 24-month ROI in that because that's a much bigger investment. But in general, most projects, especially if you're breaking them down to be in those quick win categories, you're really looking for each of those quick wins to be between 6 to 12 months ROI, right? And you can see the trend already that you're going to be hitting that point. Data. All right, so data is a huge reason for failure. We're in this new world right now where you, meaning you, yourself, and your organization should be storing data everywhere that you weren't storing it before. Store it now. So every single meeting you do is recorded. You can record your phone calls, you record your meeting notes, make sure you keep them somewhere for future AI. You have a webinar, you record it. Like everything you do should be recorded. The advantage of that is so multifolded. If you have data, you can just add services onto it at will. Like once I've seen this happen in our organizations and also in clients, like once you have data, you can have all these ideas and you just tap into the data in order to be able to use it. So AI is really your core and then you just plug services onto it. So start recording your data and it's really your moat, it's your differentiator, it's the thing that makes your business what it is. And really your data even includes your processes, honestly, but I am distinguishing between the data that is needed to run a process and the actual process itself. Now, in terms of the next layer on the pyramid here, foundation is going to be these processes. So if you don't have solid documented processes for something and you want to automate it or bring AI into that, then the first step is mapping out that process. It could be, I have here like a little flow chart, like a UML diagram or something that shows really the logical flow that things are going through. And you want to get it out of people's heads, right? Which is like tribal knowledge. And you want to get it down documented because that is gold. That is what the AI is going to be following. And that is how you can make sure that the AI process is adhering to your business processes and what the outcomes that you want to be seeing it deliver. Testing. So there's a lot I could talk about in testing. That's a whole other slide deck. I do have one company as well, disclaimer that is TestFox that is all about AI testing. So I know a lot about that, but, brief overview. AI testing is probabilistic. It's not deterministic. So what you need to determine is your tolerance for risk, your need for accuracy, and how much effort you want to be putting in to the solution, into this project or problem or software to get a high percentage of success. So, is 80% accuracy enough? I've seen sometimes where it is because you're already saving someone a ton of time. You have a human in the loop. They're going to be taking the output of the AI. They'll correct it where it needs to be corrected, and then they send it off. And getting that 80% accuracy is so much less work than trying to get 99% accuracy in your outcomes. And if it's just supporting a person, you might already be saving them 10 hours a week, right, with that. So understanding that is really important. And then understanding how do you get, if you're doing an AI chat system on a website and it's for like flight reservations, like you need to have very high accuracy then. So then you're talking about getting to like 99.999, plus percent accuracy. And so you need to start, architecturally, you need to think about things like AI control agents I have in here. So you might need to have agents in the beginning and in the end and multi-agent setup so that you can control the output and police to make sure the AI is not hallucinating and so forth. So that's a consideration that you might have to have in your architecture. Otherwise, using test-driven development is really important here. So I would say come up with your AI test cases and then work backwards towards them so that you know what it is that you're going to be testing for, and you can make sure that you're building the knowledge in the AI system in order to succeed in that. There's all kinds of other testing as well you need to think about. You think about like legal testing, liability testing. In the EU right now, you have AI Compliance Act that you might be having to test for as well. You've got personality testing, bias, memory. There's a lot, right? There's a lot. I think I have another video on my channel that's all about AI testing. You could look into my YouTube channel. But yeah, I'll leave it there. You also need someone to be doing the product ownership and do the AI evals of the system. So it's not just AI testing AI, but you have a human who's also reviewing that as well. Finally, how are you going to observe the AI system to make sure it's on track? Are you building in self-reflection into your AI system so it can learn and get better? And that's the continuous improvement. Okay, change management. All right, so this presentation is going to try and compact this a little bit. There could be a whole presentation on change management, but listening, working from the people, involving them is super important. Aligning objectives of the AI project that you want to implement with the people who are doing the work that are being automated or take the work is being taken away from them is really crucial. So if you come in and you say, we're going to do this AI project and it is going to help you to do 10 hours of less work a week in these things that you don't like, or maybe even flip it around and you say, hey, we want to help you. You're like a bottleneck in the organization. We know you've been like complaining about how hard it is for you. We want to help you to reduce your workload. Tell us what you're spending time on, and then you listen, and then from that you gather information. You come back and you say, okay, great, we're going to put in this project, this little system, this automated system. It's going to help take care of these 10 hours a week that you were doing. Isn't that great? And the person's probably going to say like, oh my god, that's awesome, thank you, that I can do less of this stuff that's just churn, right? So involving people is really important. Giving people education, I'll take the experimentation and education together. So a lot of there are studies I've been reading, and I've also seen this myself, that when you have the people who are the most resistant to AI are the people who don't know how to use it. Once people understand how it works, how cool it is, how it can help them, that resistance to AI does naturally decrease quite a lot. The people most at risk of being job displaced by AI are the ones who are resisting AI. So it's kind of this irony in that whole thing. So education is really important. It not only makes people better able to use the AI systems that are being built, but it also dramatically reduces their resistance to it as being a threat. So education, really important. Make sure that you're doing at least fundamental basic trainings of like, how do you prompt? How can you be secure? How can you integrate this into your workflow? Those kinds of things for like general AI application usage. And then the experimentation is also important. The companies I've seen that have programs like this that have been built out have been very successful. So the idea here is maybe you start like a weekly show and tell. We tried something internally that worked really well, which was every Tuesday afternoon, we would just meet and share like, what is it we've learned in AI? You know, one guy showed up and be like, I trained an image server by training it on these images, and now I can generate images in brand identity that are really aligned. And we were like, wow, that's really cool. You know, so it's kind of like getting that experimentation is really important too. It can demystify the AI is what I write here, right? Leadership. So there's a big difference between someone saying we've got a mandate to apply AI, but we don't really know what AI is, and we just want to make sure, make sure your department's 20% AI ready now, or using AI 20% of your work, or reduce your work time by 20%, and that's what you need to do. And then like, there's no real vision there. It's a lot. It's going to be there's going to be an increase in failure rate of projects like this because there is a disconnect between why we're doing AI, its potential, the visioning of where we're going is disconnected from the actual project implementation and the work that we're doing to make AI a reality, right? You want ideally that the brain and the body and everything is like connected together and there's like a coherent vision of where we're going. You're going to be so much more successful in life in general, right? When that's happening. So I would say if you're in leadership and watching this video, make sure that you don't have to know how to implement the AI, but you need to understand, what its potentials are, where it's good, how to align the ROI and vision, how to integrate people into the process, and how to, make people trust you as a leader in like where we're going with AI. So important. Feedback loop. So I already talked a little bit about the AI feedback loop, but you want the people and the AI loop, right? Make sure you're listening to feedback and improving systems and processes from the feedback. You want to, as much as possible, make AI be integrated and not disruptive. So an example could be running a parallel system with the old, right? So you're not forcing people into it. That's an example of non-disruptive. And then in terms of technical, well, parallel implementation would be what we just talked about, but also microservices allow you to deploy it incrementally. So there's more there, but that's enough. All right, so all this kind of like theory thing, I do want to kind of also make a passing reference here to these kind of step levels. You yourself and your business might feel like you're at different places along this staircase. So the fundamental bottom step, and the numbers go top to bottom, but it's really, step one would be the bottom. So right there, if you're here, then maybe you know how to use chat, basically, you know how to prompt, and or maybe you're learning how to prompt, but like this is kind of like foundational level of like what can AI do from like a conversational this might be chat GPT, for example. Augmented services is now you're beyond that and you're figuring out how to integrate AI into your workflow. So maybe you're using it to help you write proposals, or maybe you're using it to help you do research. That would be an augmented service that you're doing with AI assistance. You can see big boons of productivity with just this layer, but that's where layer 2 is. Integrated AI, so you've got AI systems that are doing work, but they're still human in the loop or human supported. And then the last one is you have your business has gotten to the point where you have AI processes that are really just running, and then people are just making sure they don't go off the rails, right? So that trust has been built there. Okay, so now we're going to get a little more concrete. So, putting that all together, basically you've got that discovery and validation phase in the beginning on the left here, and then you're building each of these projects that have successive wins, knowing that you're building towards this huge vision of the whole house, right? So maybe you're building out room by room or something like that. And of course, all along the bottom, you're doing change management throughout the way. Applied example. All right, so here is an example because I thought doing something like this would kind of make it more concrete. So here, this anonymous customer, 30 million manufacturing company, has one person who is their knowledge bottleneck. They've reached this size, but one person really has all their knowledge, and they're doing webinars that are before they're kind of like a mix of customer information to help them know how to make decisions with, customers being B2B in this case, but they also, give knowledge in those sessions around like product substitutions or solutions to certain circumstances or things like that. So, but the business as a whole is worried about, legacy knowledge retention. New people, it's harder to train because one person has all the knowledge. They want to be able to scale, right? So there's all these kind of like determined things that are important, right? That they want to be able to solve with this issue around knowledge retention and dissemination. So thinking big, we might come to this kind of vision of some kind of a virtual engineering assistant. So think of an AI system that has that person's knowledge that you can talk to, but it can also do tasks, jobs. You can have applications that kind of run using this virtual knowledge assistant, and it kind of democratizes the knowledge access, right? So and I underline here at the bottom, you're building legacy knowledge too. So you're building now a system for the business that is timeless, that has all this engineering insight that will be perpetual at that point. You're just incrementally improving it over time. So I always like to do first principles. So if you've got someone in high demand, like why is it happening? Are there things that we can be doing to alleviate that person's time? Like forget about AI for a second. Like, do they need other support? Maybe they need time management support. Maybe they need help with certain tasks and activities that have nothing to do with engineering, right? So it's really important to kind of never forget first principles whenever you're tackling problems from the beginning and you're trying to do the validation and discovery phase. But these are kind of the things that I would be looking at. So, more people need to be empowered with knowledge and training. Where are they spending their time now? And then, information and knowledge taking up too much time to share. Is there other ways that we could share the information right away that would make that easier? And then, do we have processes in place or issues with processes that are causing some of these problems that could be quick fixes, right? As we go deeper, this slide is all around data. So, what data is being created? Where do they have it? Can we synthesize the data or collect it? Are we going to do interviews? Are we going to scrape their email for the last 25 years and pull data from this person's email account to see all the questions they've been answering, right? So thinking broadly about like, where can we get data information? And then in terms of processes, so what's their process around knowledge sharing? Is it different internally, externally? And then in terms of the culture, is there alignment, right? Does the person who's the bottleneck agree they are the information bottleneck? Or are they like, oh my God, yes, I am the bottleneck of the information. Let's fix this, right? Or is there a difference of opinion between different people, between upper management, the people who are trying to get the knowledge, and then the person who has it? Do all three align? And if they don't, why? Or like what's going on in that organization, right? So it's kind of a consultative process in the beginning here. Now, in terms of generating your solution, I would say here, we're going to take this big idea, this is going back to the process, and we're going to break it down into a lot of little smaller things. So, we could start off maybe by automating their repetitive tasks, with like, you'll see later, it's like sales and marketing communication. They do webinars. Maybe we can do autoresponders for that so that after the webinar, they don't have to answer every single question. We can have an AI in there who's answering questions that are already been asked already. So, and yeah, we'll go into all of these because they're the next subsequent slides, but basically we're like breaking it down. So automate repetitive tasks. So it's kind of like a flow example. So, maybe there's like tasks to do, like inputting people into the sales CRM, follow-up communication, scheduling, data entry, all this kind of stuff can free up time. And here we mark down the benefit. Like if we implement these, we'll save about 10 hours or more for this person a week. So that's like an awesome quick win. Each of these can be a little small project. Webinar automation. So they're doing all these webinars. Let's start storing all that data. It's gold. And then as we build more data, we can start answering questions automatically. Maybe at first, the person needs to answer those questions manually, but we store them. And then the next time someone asks that same question, we can have the AI answer it, right? And so we can do that process in the loops so that the AI answers the question. It's in draft. That person who's the bottleneck reviews the draft response to the person who asked the question. If it looks perfect, they just hit send, right? So there's ways to kind of build that trust there. And we're also building product knowledge. Specification database, so in this case, other people from the team want to know information about like product substitution and availability. And, when should I use my, I think this is like factory related. So it's like, when is my factory, if I have an environment in here and the temperature needs between these zones, normally I'd use this product, but because of these temperature specifications, what other product should I use in this situation instead? That kind of a database could be something, maybe they already have something, or maybe you need to build something that has that specifications. And once you have that, you can start searching it. So here we're building a tool, again, to kind of further the idea of this AI engineer ultimately. But in the meantime, we can build a tool that you can search internally to get product knowledge or substitution knowledge in this case. And that would already be valuable. You have to spend less time asking the person for what's in their head about product substitution. Email scraping, I already talked about this. The big problem with this is that this can be tricky, and you could end up with a lot of data that needs to be then re-reviewed to make sure it's correctly categorized and organized. You need to be doing like little tiny samples of it and see the results you're getting from that before you scale out and do the whole thing. So there are cons here. I wouldn't say this is kind of like in that category of, impact is kind of like, maybe I'll see in that slide coming up, but could be like medium impact and medium effort. So it's maybe like not your first thing, but this, for example, here is an option in this case study. And then knowledge applications. These could be an app that you have on your website that customers could use, and they could show them product substitutions or building solutions that you're using on the app, the knowledge. And then another thing that you can do once you start having all this data is start doing that predictive modeling. So you could show forecasts of certain inventory numbers or demand based on certain patterns. And you can give insights even to that person who is the bottleneck. They might be learning new things from this. So you're kind of expanding potential by also showing pattern recognition. And then reports. Instead of having to ask the person for how certain things are going, you can build these reports. In this case, with this client case study, the ERP system is particularly limiting with reports. And so you can build, or in this case, there's a separate bridge system that's being built that pulls from the ERP API into its own little custom table. And then you can just, once that's up, you can at a low cost generate additional reports that you want and modify them to be your needs. And then that data is also enabling future AI integration and processes. So if you map this all out, you end up, here, see, I've got the email scrape here on low impact and low easy. So yeah, all these projects, you kind of map them out against that matrix, right? And so we might have here, and I think the way this is mapped out, it's top right is the low effort, high impact. So the automation is kind of like your biggest win here for high impact and easy. And then, predictive modeling is also maybe not super high impact compared to automation, but it's not that hard, right? To do some predictive modeling if you have the data. So that would be kind of like your first wins is going to be this like 1, 2, 7, and maybe this 3 as well. So you map out, whiteboarding sessions, and then you map it out, and you've got your process flows, and then you're going to build a roadmap. I think a 6-month roadmap is great for AI projects because of, the rate of change of things. And then you've got these measurable milestones at so here we have in this example, 3 months to the first kind of release. And then from there, you can start measuring ROI because the first month or 2 is kind of planning and then definition for like processes and systems. And then you start building the webinar autoresponder and the time automation. And then month 3, it really kicks in. And then from there, you kind of got the train going at a good speed and you start cranking out one thing after the other after that, right? And so Third milestone is that first release. And then on the sixth one, you've got a new strategic planning checkpoint to see what are we going to hit next from the list, or do we want to go back and improve one of these other systems and so forth. And this is my last slide. Thank you for making it all the way here. This one's a bit of a noodle, but I think it's important to kind of show how it all ties together. So we've got a little legend here. So if things have a triangle, then it's delta, right? It's time. So it's increasing your time or decreasing time spent on things you don't want to be spending. Little happy faces means that we've got happy customers most of the time here. And this is increasing of data or knowledge for our AI systems. And then the light bulbs is like new opportunities, new thoughts, new ideas that you maybe weren't able to do before. So we're automating tasks. Those are just kind of like our quick win things. We're restoring this webinar information. So we've got like the autoresponders and things like that. So we're saving time here and more happy customers because we're responding to more questions in the webinar more easily or just more in general. Those predictive reports with that machine learning thing that we were seeing, that's giving you not only more data to be storing that, but it's also giving you new insights. You can ask questions you weren't able to ask before, and you can come up with new good questions to be asking, right? So, because a lot of the challenge in business and in life is asking the right questions, right? Asking the wrong question is easy. Getting the answers is actually easier than asking the right question. So this can help you ask more of the right questions. Same thing with these custom reports. And so all of this information, as well as taking in from data from email or synthesizing means generating data, right? And so you can generate data and then you can have a human review it and tell you where the data needs to be improved or changed, and then kind of that iterative cycle. That's what the synthesis means. But you could be doing interviews, like a video interview, and you record it and store that in your data. So all these data projects are also building up data for this knowledge. And once you've got a bunch of the knowledge in there, you can start having a chat interface and you can start talking to the knowledge that you have, right? And then from that knowledge, these are the outputs, these blue lines. So you can have some kind of an application on your website or internal that does substitutions or calculations as like tools. You can also automate M&S. Here I was running out of space. That means like marketing or sales automations can be then tied into the knowledge, or you could have engineering quotes or proposals that are auto-generated by this virtual engineer. That's this bubble here on the right. And then the webinar 2.0, this is like a webinar where like even more that is being automated and questions come in, maybe questions even during the webinar that weren't answered or being sent answers afterwards, all automatically, and follow-ups and all that kind of beautiful stuff. And then you finally have this training system that you can then do, because if you hire a new engineer, they've got this knowledge chat interface that you can leverage to build a new kind of interactive a conversational system for that to kind of support the new engineer in their role, answer the questions, how do I solve this customer problem with this specific need under these specific conditions with the right solution. So, and ultimately you're getting that virtual engineer out of all these projects, plus all these wins all along the way. All right, so thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Any feedback, comments, questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to help you. And you can reach me on these different places, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I have a channel there too where I post videos. And of course on my website, and phone numbers here too if you want to reach out to me through Fountain City. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.